TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here, D. Wood, and with me now is the author of the Quran, Robert Spencer. How you doing, Robert?
Just great, David. The revelation hasn't come upon me today, but maybe tomorrow will be better.
Yeah. Just check your house for any dogs. Check your house for any
That must
dogs.
be it.
Yeah,
Maybe,
Gabriel's terrified.
got pictures on the wall.
Yeah, and pictures. Oh my goodness, you still haven't figured this out?
Yeah, you'd think by now.
So, Robert, wasn't planning this. I just messaged you early this morning. We've been talking about a guy. Dr. Craig. Do you know if it's Considine or Considine?
I think it's Considine.
Considine. We'll go with Considine. We'll roll with Considine. We'll assume it's Considine. Hey, why is it not showing me why is it not showing me comments here? Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay. We got the comments pulled up. All right. So anyway, I have to say, Robert, that news about Craig Considine was that's like as shocking as like some Dawa guy saying he just renounced Islam and converted to something else. That's how surprising that was. And people aren't. We're going to give people an idea of how far this guy's head was up Muhammad's butt. We are going to show people, but most people, as of right now, do not know why this is so shocking. But before we actually go into some of his articles and then show the like absolutely insane, shocking turnaround that just happened, like out of nowhere, just give us a little your thoughts on Craig Considine before we jump into some actual sources on him.
Yeah, actually, Craig Considine is a one of the pillars, really, of the whole Islamic Dawa establishment. He's, you have the guys on YouTube that probably the people who are watching this are more familiar with, but Craig Considine is one of the guys who is writing books. He makes videos also, but he's written books about how great Muhammad is. He has been on the scene for probably about 15 years, maybe longer. He was a student of Dr. Akbar Ahmed, who is an academic Islamic apologist from the old school. Considine is probably his star pupil. Never converted to Islam, at least officially, although he says he's a Catholic, but he has also for years acknowledged that Muhammad was a prophet and scolded Christians for not accepting Muhammad as a
Shame
prophet.
on us.
Written about how wonderful Muhammad is, how he's really the most exemplary human being ever, and just the way you would expect a Muslim to. And so he's been a very important figure for Dawah because he's one of those guys where the Muslims can point to him and say, you see, here's a non-Muslim who agrees that Muhammad is wonderful. And that's probably one of the reasons why he did not declare his open conversion to Islam, because that would lessen his usefulness
Yeah, he's more
in the Dawa
useful
network.
as a Catholic academic who's constantly praising Muhammad.
Exactly. And he's been doing this for many years, but just recently, it seems like since October 7th, he's had a big change. Now, we have to also not get too happy about this because just the other day, I was talking to him on Twitter, and he said, I stand by my scholarship on Muhammad. I'm sure we'll see how absurd that is as this goes on. But he's not renounced his claim that Muhammad is a prophet. He's not gone back on any of his ridiculous claims about Muhammad. But now he has broken with the Dawa movement, with the Muslim Brotherhood that's behind it, and is openly criticizing the Brotherhood and admitting that the Brotherhood has a scheme to take over the United States and gain political power, which he was one of the guys denying this all these years.
Hmm. And yeah, that's kind of my assessment. He seemed like the most extreme most extremely deceptive of the Dawa guys, because you have Dawa guys who will acknowledge, of course, there's a death penalty, and of course, Aisha was 9, and this and that. They'll acknowledge things that we use to criticize Islam. Then you have like a different category of Dawa guys who are just obsessed with claiming that anything you happen to like or appreciate it's exactly like Muhammad, and Muhammad actually started it. Muhammad actually was the foundation of whatever you happen to like about your world. So that's like the history of the articles that I saw from him. The entire history was, oh, here's this thing you like in the West. Actually, look at the connection to Muhammad and look at how this somehow is connected to Muhammad, or how Muhammad was actually the same. And so we'll be matter of people don't know. This goes way back. So I remembered a clip where we were talking about his claim that Muhammad was the George Washington of 7th century Arabia, or conversely that George Washington was the Muhammad of the 18th century. He was the Muhammad of America, right? So he had this, and we actually did a show. This is back when we were doing shows with the Trinity Channel, and we were I don't remember exactly. We were planning to go live to discuss this, and Pastor Joseph goes, "Hey, I know a guy who got a George Washington costume. You want to wear that?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll put it on." So I actually dressed up as George Washington, and then we treated me as George Washington the entire show. Anyway, I was thinking, just to show everyone how long ago, because this was 2013, and we had already known about Craig Considine from before. But in 2013, you're talking 11 years ago, we were already talking about this guy in shows and how insane his claims about Muhammad were. But let's go ahead and watch. I noticed this is before I even had a beard. I've been rocking a beard, and not nearly as long as you have, but I've been rocking a beard for a long time, and this is before the beard. So
hard to believe.
Yeah, hard to believe that such a thing even existed. But let's go ahead and watch. I think the full thing is in, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours or something like that, of us going through how the absurdity, because we went through the entire article and exposed it from the Muslim sources. But let's see, where is that? Got to find it. I pulled up a clip here. 1 second. I got to type it in to see where it's at. Choose file. Here we go. What did I call this? George Washington? Yes. Okay, George Washington. So yeah, guys, this was a full video. We did a full discussion. We went through his entire article. I just want to show you how long ago we were talking about this guy that we're going to be focusing on during this show.
We have a supernatural visitor, not unlike...
1 second. Let me get us here. All right. He said a supernatural visitor. Pastor Joseph. All right, let me back this thing up. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
We have a supernatural visitor, not unlike the one that Muhammad had in that cave in Mount Hira years ago, but someone far more noble, far better. But before we get to him, we're going to get to someone who I'm so thankful to meet and have on the program tonight, our dear brother, Robert Spencer.
Thank you very much, Pastor Joseph. And I, too, am very grateful to be here, very happy to be here for this very special program. This program is unlike any other you ever...
Hey, you've got slightly more gray in your beard, but other than that, you still look the same.
I can't see it, but I trust you. I believe it.
Yeah. I don't look the same, but let's go.
Ever seen, Amen. I guarantee it. For we have in the studio with us tonight a guest so special that I can guarantee you that he has not appeared live on television since at least 1799. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us tonight, giving his first press conference of the 21st century, a true president, an American patriot, a lover of freedom, and someone who is here for a very important reason tonight, which will very soon become clear. And so let's give a big welcome to President George Washington.
Hey, praise the Lord.
Hang on. Wait, we already said this, but someone's asking, how long ago was this? This was 2013, Dyro. So back in 2013, as you can see, no beard on D Wood here. This was a long, long time ago. We're trying to show, if you just tuned in, we're trying to show how long ago we were responding to the work, if we can call it that, of Dr. Craig Considine promoting Muhammad as this great figure. And in this particular video, we'll even take a look at the we'll take a peek at the article that we're responding to here. Just wanted to give everyone a quick idea of how long we've been responding to this dude, because it was just completely shocking, and for me came out of nowhere that he did a 180.
President Washington, indeed, it's an honor. What is it? What occasion brings you here to our century?
It's Virginians, not virgins. Virginians, not virgins.
Well, what in the world could President Washington be referring to, Brother Spencer?
Well, Pastor, you know, I think that, Mr. President, if I may, I think that he might be expressing a little bit of, and I think it has to be admitted, quite justifiable irritation over a piece that recently appeared in the peerless leftist online publication known as the Huffington Post. The Huffington Post is a leader.
Yeah, Huffington Post. Most of his articles, at least the ones that I saw, were Huffington Post and praising Muhammad for pretty much anything. If you said you like cotton candy, I guarantee you Craig Considine would have instantly written an article about how Muhammad invented cotton candy.
In the leftist Islamic supremacist alliance, and frequently publishes apologetics, speaking with warm, positive tones about Islam, about jihad, about Islam's mistreatment of women, institutionalized discrimination against women and non-Muslims, and so on. But the Huffington Post this past week has outdone itself, and that is why our illustrious visitor has come to us from the 18th century. It appears that the Huffington Post has actually gone on record likening George Washington to Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam.
It's funny because this is Craig Considine writing in the Huffington Post, but you're like, the Huffington Post has declared. The Huffington Post has declared that George Washington is like Muhammad.
I don't know what that's all about. I probably figured nobody's heard of Craig Considine, but they know the Huffington Post.
Yeah, I mean, and the Huffington Post is the one that was cranking out all these articles, as we're about to see here very, very soon. But let's...
Now, this may seem to be absurd on its face, but it was put forward quite seriously by a gentleman writing at the Huffington Post and actually arguing that the two were very similar. This so incensed the nation's first president that he decided to come to our studios tonight in order to set the record straight.
Yeah, I built a time machine fueled by 1.21 gigawatts of Islamophobia and came to the future.
And so, actually, I'd like to take it to you, Mr. President. The first thing I'd like to ask you is, at what age were you when you married Martha Washington? Or actually, more precisely, at what age was she? Was she 9 years old? Or 6 when you made the engagement, and 9 when the marriage was consummated?
Actually, Martha Custis was 27 years old when I married her, and I was 27 as well. So, in what fifth dimension of HuffPo hell am I anything like Muhammad, who had sex with a 9-year-old girl? I leave that to the nation.
Anyway, so guys, you can actually still find that if you type in George Washington or Muhammad. You can find that old episode where we go through it. But what do you think, Robert? Should we take a look? Should we give people a tour through some of the work of Craig Considine before we get to one of the most amazing turnarounds I've ever seen?
Yeah, remember, Craig Considine stands by all these things he said about Muhammad, so they are enduringly relevant.
So there's the stuff. In other words, the stuff we're about to pull up. He's done a big 180 on like the Muslim Brotherhood and on the issue of Israel and stuff like that. But you're saying, as far as him praising Muhammad, you're saying he still believes that stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I asked him just the other day. People can still see it relatively recently on Twitter. I asked him for a debate about Muhammad, and he said, "Oh, he's not interested in these debates where people are playing gotcha games and all that." And I think, well, yeah, feel the same way, actually. It's kind of pointless as far as I'm concerned. So he said, I'd much rather have a mature conversation where we are both working toward the truth. I said, great, come on to my channel and we'll have that. And he said, well, I'll have to think about it. Craig, you're welcome. Be happy to discuss it with you, but you're going to have to understand, of course, that as you no doubt know, that what you've said about Muhammad over the years is ridiculous, is not supported by the facts, and so that would have to come out.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue. If Craig Considine actually believed the stuff that he's saying, believed you're wrong about the stuff you say about Muhammad, but actually believes that the nonsense he's spouting about Muhammad is the truth, my goodness, why not set the record straight and school the mighty Robert Spencer on his own channel?
Yeah,
leading to
absolutely.
endless humiliation.
After all, when they lose debates, they claim victory and try to say you were humiliated. So when he could win one and actually do it for real.
Yeah, Lisa H here says, I posted to him and he said he changed. I agree, and we'll see that in the tweet. So that's what we're trying to, we want to do a brief, give people a brief tour through some of the stuff we've seen from him over the years, just to show how shocking it is that he did change, at least on some of the issues. So let's go ahead and take a peek at some of this stuff.
Okay.
All right, here we have Huffington Post. This is the one we were responding to. So look at this. This is 2013. An unlikely connection between the Prophet Muhammad and George Washington. And right there you have it. Muhammad and Washington were gentlemen of the highest degree.
Yep.
Yes, any 54-year-old man who bones a 9-year-old girl is a gentleman of the highest degree. It's just, the definition of gentleman is flexible, and, it's changed a bit over the years.
I just wonder when George did that. I didn't read that in Parson Weems,
Yeah, this is no more evident than in the connection between them in the Holy Quran and rules of civility. So George Washington's little discussion on being civil. So we've got that. Here, we're not going to go through the entire article. Again, I think we went through the full article in that video we did. We just want to give people a taste of some of these articles. But let me go and read this. Robert, you can tell me to stop anytime you want to comment on anything. But let's see here. In 7th century Arabia, a middle-aged man had a vision to create a new religious and social order for a largely pagan and tribal society. The man, Muhammad, told his band of followers to behave wisely and civilly. The best among you, he said, are those who have the best manners and character. Just keep in mind.
Okay, hold on. I'm thinking about the Battle of Badr, Uhud, Tabuk, all of the battles that Muhammad was involved in, the assassinations of his enemies who criticized him, all these. How is that behaving wisely and civilly, David?
That's my problem. If you want to say that Muhammad had the best manners and character, okay, but you need to clarify what best manners and character meant when applied to Muhammad. You could have the best character. That's what the Quran says. He says a wonderful pattern of conduct. You can have the best character and have sex with a prepubescent 9-year-old girl. You can have the best character, the best manners, and be telling your followers that it's okay to beat their wives into submission. You could even beat your wife until her skin turned green, and the man with the best manners and the best character would condemn you for being a bad wife if your husband had to beat you until your skin turned green. You could take the wife of your own adopted son. You can buy, sell, own, trade, black African slaves. All of that is completely consistent with you having the best manners and the best character. So this is it's almost like it's in the same ballpark with equivocation, where you're changing the meaning of words, right? But you're saying something which a Muslim would agree with. Yes, he had the best manners and best character. But when we in the West hear best manners and best character, Considine knows we're interpreting that to mean best manners and character, like according to what we're familiar with, not doing the sickest, most evil things we can imagine and still just calling it best manners and best character.
So, David, I don't think, I could be wrong. Craig, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Craig Considine has ever addressed the marriage to Aisha, the sex slaves, the beating the wife, any of the things you just mentioned. But he paints this picture of Muhammad as this sort of proto-Gandhi who is wise, who is peaceful, who is anti-racist. That's another one of his hobby horses, and so on. Now, I want to ask you, just for the record, when we get it, we're getting all this that we're saying about Muhammad. It's in the Hadith. It's in the Sirah literature. It's in the material that Muslims believe is trustworthy to tell them about what Muhammad said and did. Now, is there any early Islamic record that shows Muhammad to be a wise, civil individual in the Western sense who treated people fairly and justly and honorably and was not a rapist and a warlord and a murderer and all the rest of it?
No. I mean, it's all over the Muslim sources that Muhammad's the best this and the best that, and he's wonderful this and wonderful that. But if you're talking about what we mean by good manners, good character, and stuff like that, no, this guy would be serving 487 life sentences if he were around today.
So is Craig Considine, when he says these things, he is either completely ignorant of what the Islamic sources actually say, or he is misleading his readers deliberately. Is there any other alternative?
Yes, it's one of those, or possibly that he's being fed complete nonsense by the Muslim Brotherhood.
So then he would be ignorant of what the Islamic sources actually say. Mm-hmm. And he's got a go-between who's telling him all this about Muhammad, and he never bothers to check. He just runs with it. So either way, it's not a pretty picture.
Not a pretty picture. So this is the guy again. 9-year-old girl, all this stuff. Got caught having sex with his slave girl in his wife Hafsa's bed, then took an oath. And keep in mind that the objection was not that he was having sex with a slave girl. He was allowed to do that. The objection was that he was doing it in the bed of one of his wives. And when his wives complained about this, he took an oath and said, "Fine, I will never touch that woman again." And of course, then he gets a revelation. The person who is best in manners and best in character got a revelation telling, hey, you need to break your oath. You need to go and break that oath and start banging that slave girl again. And so this is the guy.
Surah 66, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Surah 66, verses 1 to 5, scold Hafsa and Aisha for objecting to his having sex with Mary the Copt, the slave girl.
Indeed. All right, so the best among you, he said, are those who had the best manners and character. Keep in mind what that means in 7th century Arabia, not in 21st century America or Europe. More than 1,000 years later, Muhammad's wisdom would be echoed again, this time in the British colony of Virginia by a 13-year-old schoolboy jotting down a lengthy set of behavioral rules that would later be published as Rules of Civility. The schoolboy was none other than George Washington, who would one day become the first president of the United States of America. Muhammad and Washington may seem like an unlikely connection, or I would say a stupid, idiotic, and ridiculous connection. But in fact, they share strikingly similar biographies.
David, have you read Washington's Rules of Civility?
Didn't we read some of it during the show? I don't remember.
I think we did, yeah. I think now that you mention it, absolutely. But it's just worth noting that George Washington doesn't say anything in there about raping children or taking sex slaves or having his critics assassinated in targeted killings. Nothing. There's none of that in there at all. So I don't know where Craig's finding the similarity.
Maybe that was the 2.0 edition and it's been lost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Concealed by the Islamophobes.
So, hey, check this out. Strikingly similar biographies. Muhammad and Washington were students of history.
Really?
Now, yeah, I'm thinking, in what sense was Muhammad a student of history? The only sense in which he's a student of history is that he's known, even according to the Quran, as the ear. And he's criticized for believing anything anyone tells him. So he just believes whatever stories people come up with. And so that's why you end up with all these ridiculous legends about Alexander the Great and so on in the Quran, the sleepers of the cave and so on. I don't know if I consider that a student of history. He hears a bunch of stories. History is different. There's a method with history that helps you distinguish true information from false information. Muhammad was completely lacking in that area. He could not tell the difference between a fable or a bedtime story and something that actually happened. So this is just ridiculous here at the very beginning.
He outrages history. He completely rewrites history because he claims in the Quran, or whoever wrote the Quran claims, that the Quran confirms the Torah and the Gospel, and it doesn't. And this gives rise to this idea in Islam that the Jewish and Christian scriptures have been corrupted by the Jews and Christians. This is just changing history to suit yourself.
Yeah, and all Muhammad did to accomplish this was just anyone that anyone else liked in history, he would just say, "Oh yeah, he's a Muslim," and he said, "Hey, just believe in Allah and Muhammad," and that's all he did. That's not history, guys. History is not saying, "Hey, who do you like? Oh, you guys like Moses? Well, did you know that Moses was a Muslim and he preached the same thing I'm preaching? Oh yeah, just received a revelation saying that Moses agrees with me and Jesus agrees with me and they all agree with me. I got the revelation right here in my head." That's not history, guys. Anyway, all right. So Muhammad and Washington were students of history, restorers of justice.
Wow.
That's what I'd call Muhammad. And fierce warriors who led, you could say warrior, who led their respective nations through successful revolutions. Both men united a large swath of political territory and served as the founding father for two unprecedented social movements, Islam and the United States of America, whose universal ideals would both spread throughout the world, respectively. So he just goes on and on and on and drawing comparisons between Muhammad and George Washington like this.
It's so crazy. It's just taking everything that's distinctive about Muhammad out and imagining this completely fake Muhammad. He's got his own private Muhammad. There is no basis for Craig Considine's Muhammad in any Islamic texts.
And just look at the parallel he's drawing. It's Muhammad said, those who have the best manners and character, which in Muhammad's time, as we pointed out, meant something completely different and repulsive and disgusting from what that would mean now. But if that's the parallel you're drawing, every kindergarten teacher encourages good manners and stuff like that. It's like, oh, look, you see, let me draw the comparison between George Washington and this kindergarten teacher. The way he's doing it, you could draw a comparison between any two people.
Yeah. Well, it's true, because once you decide that you're going to just make up whatever about Muhammad, then you can compare him to anyone. You could say Muhammad is the new Jackie Kennedy. He doesn't have to correspond to reality at all.
Yeah, pick anyone. You could compare. If you wanted to compare Muhammad, you could compare him to Biden. You could compare him to Trump. You could compare him to Kamala. You could compare anyone to anyone using this guy's method of, let me find something similar that these guys said at any point in their lives and completely ignore how radically different they were in other ways. Interesting method. But that's probably why he thinks Muhammad was great at history. This is the same method, right? It's basically the
as
same
long as you're
methods.
making it up. Yeah.
Just make up anything you want to make any point you want, and it doesn't matter how accurate you are, as long as you're making the point you want, and that's how you do it. All right, so we're gonna go through some more of those. We'll take a couple super chats real quick. Mother Queen says, "Mr. Robert, how are you, sir? God bless you." Oh, hi, D Wood.
Oh, hi. I'm fine. How are you? There you have it.
There you have it. Your question was answered. Coffeehouse Dialogue says, want to respond to a video by Lavater about the so-called Green Scare in Europe. Context, he's a Bosnian Muslim monarchist living in Germany. Not familiar with him.
I don't know.
Yeah, probably send that to AP if you think it's interesting, and if AP wants to discuss that, we can do a show on that sometime. Jai and DOC said today, produce a surah like it, then proceeded to copy stories from other religions and folk tales.
That's true.
That's exactly how you would do it. If you wanted to write something like a surah of the Quran, you would take some stories from other religions and just put them in Arabic and have them praising Allah and Muhammad. That's it. That's all you do.
Yep.
Powerful method. Powerful method. No wonder Dr. Considine loves him. Muslims say there is no compulsion in religion to display Islam being peaceful, but isn't 929 a clear contradiction to that? So, Robert, I'll give one interpretation of that. We know there are many, but yeah, the most straightforward is if you go to a commentary like Qurtubi and so on, he lists a number of interpretations of Surah 2, verse 256, where you get no compulsion in religion. But if you give that verse the meaning that we would give it if we just heard it in the West. In other words, if you heard there's no compulsion in religion, you would think it means, hey, you don't force people to believe or something like that. If you go to Qurtubi, the people who interpreted it like that said that it was abrogated. In other words, if that's what you interpreted this to mean, hey, you don't go out and fight and tell people to convert or die. You don't tell people that. The early Muslim scholars who interpreted it that way had to conclude that it was abrogated by later verses like Surah 9:5, Surah 9:29, Surah 9:73, Surah 9:123. It's exactly what they say. It was abrogated by later commands. But Robert, what are your thoughts on that? Is that your view, or do you have one of the other views?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Sayyid Qutb, the great scholar of the Muslim Brotherhood in the 20th century, in his tafsir, he actually confirms Qurtubi and says that it was abrogated by 2:193. Fight them until persecution is no more, and religion is all for Allah. And so if you're going to make religion all for Allah, which is also, of course, in 839, then there might be people completely minding their business and not causing any trouble at all, but their religion is not all for Allah, so you have to fight them. There are others, however, who say that it just, there is a choice when they come to you, the jihadis, because you could convert or die, and you have that choice. So there's no compulsion. If you are forced to convert, you're not really being forced to convert, because you could choose to be killed.
So lots of different ways to come at that verse, Luke. You can find online the Qurtubi's commentary. Qurtubi's commentary is useful because he goes through basically what everyone said up to his time, what all the different Muslim scholarly views. Guess what? The way that a Muslim dawah guy would present it, it's fun because they don't do this as much as they were 15 years ago. Back then they were calling us liars about jihad and so on, and so they would say, hey, no compulsion in religion and so on. But the way they interpreted it as some sort of binding command, talking about Western dawah guys 10 or 15 years ago who said that, no, Islam's all about peace and tolerance. And when you ask them for evidence, they said, look, Surah 2, verse 256 says there's no compulsion in religion. The people who wanted to interpret it that way, guess what? As some binding command that you don't compel people to accept Islam, you don't find that anywhere in Qurtubi's list of different interpretations. No one interpreted it that way. The people who even thought that it meant that originally had to say it was abrogated. Why? You can't say there's no compulsion in religion when you're ordering people you're saying, hey, we're going to fight you until you pay the jizya or we kill you. You can't say there's no compulsion in religion when if anyone leaves the religion, you have to execute him. It would make the interpretation that a Western Muslim 10 years ago would give this verse makes no sense in light of everything else Muhammad said. And that's why no one back then held that position. Let's see, two more real quick. Hey guys, so glad you're here. I never get Robert notifications on X. God bless you both from UKistan. It's nuts here.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we've been saying.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying sorry about the notifications. I, of course, have no control over that. That is because of all the banning and shadow banning and all that. Because, as you all know, I'm such an evil character. And that actually is a hangover from the days that David was just talking about, where the Dawah guys and the Islamic professors and so on were all saying Islam is peace and it's Islamophobic to say that Islam has doctrines of warfare and so on. And those of us who were saying it were banned, blocked, shadow banned, marginalized in various ways. And a lot of that is still in place. So I'm so terrible, it's tough to find me, but you can find me at Jihad Watch Video with This Week in Jihad on Wednesday evenings. And one day I'll get around to making more videos. And got a lot of books out. You can find at Amazon. And, of course, jihadwatch.org has all your jihad news.
Yeah, and there are links. Let's see, what links do I have here? Links in the description box. I got links to Robert's YouTube channel where we do This Week in Jihad, to his Twitter page, and to his book, The History of Jihad. Everyone needs to have a copy of The History of Jihad. Got to have that one. All right, one more here. Let's see. Oh, that's a super sticker. Pair character putting his hand in front of his mouth while blushing. Why would you blush just because Muhammad did something to a 9-year-old girl? Shame on you. Shame on you. All right, Robert. Let's keep going with Dr. Craig Considine here. What's the next article here? A new perspective of jihad in Christianity and Islam.
Oh, yeah, I love this article. This one is really even more ridiculous than the George Washington article.
And this one was also 2013. So you're talking 11 years ago. He was writing this. Again, we'll just look at a little excerpt, but I glanced at it. Looks like he's saying that, okay, jihad in Islam is just, just struggling to do what's good and right and loving. And guess what? Christians believe in struggling to do those things too. So Christians also have that kind of jihad for struggling to do what's right and struggling to love people and so on, and struggling to build bridges, that sort of thing. But let's check this out. The hype in America and abroad. The hype. Yeah, it's all hype. What do we get after this? We got ISIS. The hype. Dumb Americans think that there's jihad. The hype in America and abroad over jihad has brought me to consider the term through a Christian perspective. Yeah, that's what you do. If you have something like jihad, just interpret it through a Christian perspective.
That'll make it go away.
Yeah, that'll change it. In this piece, wasn't this around the same time as the That's My Jihad campaign?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the Council on American Islamic Relations ran posters on buses and in subway stations and so on, saying my jihad is getting the kids to the gym on time or school on time, and getting to the gym and exercising regularly. What's your jihad? And that was when Pamela Geller and I put out parody ads that had people like Nidal Hassan, the Fort Hood shooter, and Qaradawi, saying my jihad is dismembering infidels, or this Hamas guy saying jihad is our worship to Allah. And these were real quotes, but they all got banned, of course, because they were Islamophobic.
Yeah, weird. So we actually did lots of stuff on those back in the day. My jihad is making friends across the aisle. What's yours? My jihad is getting to the gym after a busy day's work. What's yours? My jihad is getting up and getting my kids to school despite my busy day. It was like, they just took anything you could struggle with and say, well, jihad just means struggle, so that's all my jihad. They tried to change the meaning of jihad. And so Craig Considine's right in the middle of all that. Anyway, he says, in this piece, I seek to explore how forms of jihad are present in Christianity and pinpoint different ways of looking at jihad in Christian and Islamic texts. And again, it's just, well, Christians believe in struggling for what's good and right, too. Nothing about us subjugating the world. But anyway, let's read a little passage from this. It's the beginning of the article. It's much longer if anyone wants to check it out. Politicians and anti-Muslim activists.
That's us, David.
Yeah, that's us, huh? frequently take to audiences and websites to criticize the term jihad as a form of Islamic supremacism, oppression, and violence.
How could they get such an idea?
Yeah, I'm thinking like directly from the Muslim sources. No, you guys just invented it. Yeah. And we took the same time machine that George Washington used to travel to the future, and we went back in time and wrote all this stuff into Islam's most trusted sources.
Yeah, then we went over to Gaza, got them all stirred up. telling them about jihad. They'd never
It's
heard
all
it.
the
They thought it
Islamophobes.
was peace and love.
Muslim extremists, on the other hand, argue that jihad refers to a holy war against non-Muslims. Viewing the term jihad through these frameworks alone, however, would be playing into the hands of extremists who forego the other elements encompassed by the term jihad. In Islam, what's that?
He's right, David. He's right.
Of course he's right. He's always right.
We have to admit he's right. There are other meanings of jihad. The Islamic Republic of Iran has a Department of Agricultural Jihad. It's not blowing stuff up on the farm. It's trying to increase crop yields and the efficiency of the farm itself. There is struggle. There is jihad that is not warfare against non-Muslims. It really does exist. But where he goes wrong is not acknowledging that the primary meaning of jihad in Islamic theology is indeed warfare against unbelievers.
Indeed. We're about to see a problem here because we'll actually do something crazy and look at what Muhammad actually said here. Let's see. In Islam, jihad has several different components, which include personal struggles, such as the struggle against addiction. Hey, Robert, you want people to struggle against addiction, don't you? See, you're a jihadist.
I want Craig Considine to struggle against his addiction to praising Muhammad without any basis in the Islamic texts.
Yeah, so you believe in a struggle. So you're a jihadist.
That's it, man. Yep.
Social struggles, such as the struggle to become tolerant of others. It's a struggle to be more tolerant and loving towards everyone else. That's what he thinks is one of the meanings of jihad. And occasionally a military struggle, if and when, we're going to come, I want to finish reading this passage, and we're going to come back to this, this middle paragraph here. Occasionally a military struggle, if and when necessary, in self-defense. Oopsie, yeah. Fight those who do not believe. That's self-defense. I've been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. That sounds like self-defense. Yep. Fighting people because of what they believe and forcing them to convert.
Even fight them until religion is all for Allah. There's no way you can interpret that as defense. If you're fighting until religion is all for Allah, then you're going to be fighting people who are not doing anything to anybody except they're worshiping in some other way.
When asked what is the major jihad, Muhammad replied, the jihad of the self, struggle against the personal self. Contrary, we're about to look at that. Contrary to the rhetoric and misinformation about jihad in anti-Islam networks like Jihad Watch, Muhammad did not... Hey, look at this. Muhammad did not say that the violent struggle was the most important form of jihad. We're going to get back to that too.
Well then, ISIS has to go home.
Yeah, shame on them. Let's see what he I'll just finish out this intro here. The hype in America and abroad over jihad has brought me to consider the term through a Christian perspective. In this piece, I seek to do two things. Explore how forms of jihad are present in Christianity. Keep in mind, he's talking about like struggling to be more tolerant and so on. Say, hey, Christians believe in that. See, they have jihad too. Are present in Christianity and pinpoint different ways of looking at jihad in Christian and Islamic texts. Doing so can help find common characteristics of jihad so that Christians and Muslims can build bridges of mutual understanding and tolerance. This is what we were dealing with back then.
Yeah, and people bought it. People believed it. People still believe it.
All right, now, hey, look at the end of that second paragraph there. Contrary to the rhetoric and misinformation about jihad in anti-Islam networks, Muhammad did not say that the violent struggle was the most important form of jihad. So he didn't say that. He didn't say that.
David, I don't know. I think Craig's nose is growing again.
Let's see. Well, I mean, the only way to know would be, Sunan Ibn Majah, 2794, grade Sahih.
Yep.
It was narrated. There are bunches of passages like this, ladies and gentlemen. It's just one because it's said where Muhammad says exactly what Craig Considine just said. Muhammad didn't say exactly where Muhammad's. Oh my goodness! There, let's just read it. It was narrated that Amr bin Abbasa said, "I came to the Prophet and said, O Messenger of Allah, which jihad is best? Which jihad is best?" He said, "That of a man whose blood is shed and his horse is wounded." What is that? That's jihad.
That sounds like violent jihad to me.
That's fighting, ladies and gentlemen. That's fighting. And it's the best because you want to be hurt and martyred. You keep your wounds when you get to paradise, and they are extremely attractive to the ladies.
David, in years and years of practicing Christian prayer, never once did I start bleeding or my horse get wounded.
Huh, that's weird, because that's all
Yeah,
jihad is.
I must have been praying wrong.
So guys, look at this, look at this, look at this. Which jihad is best? That's specifically the question Muhammad was asked. Muhammad responds, that of a man whose blood is shed and his horse wounded. You get injured while fighting in the way of Allah. Now, once again, look at what Craig Considine says. Contrary to the rhetoric and misinformation about jihad and anti-Islam networks, Muhammad did not say that the violent struggle was the most important form of jihad. He specifically said it's the best. He was asked, what's the best? And he said, yeah, the one where you're out fighting and you get injured or killed. Wild, wild, wild stuff. One more.
Here again, I wonder, does he not know this passage and all the others like it? Or is he just ignoring it in hoping that the people who's reading his article don't know it?
Yeah, he's ignorant or deceptive. He has to be one or the other, because he's flat out he's flat out saying the exact opposite of what Muhammad said in a Sahih narration. But look at the sentence before that. When asked, what is the major jihad, Muhammad replied, the jihad of the self, struggle against the personal self. So you've got the hadith about that. Let's go ahead and let me pull up an article, Robert, because every time you go to actual serious Muslims about this, they say something quite different. Let's check this out here. So this is Islam Online. The hadith of returning from minor to the major jihad. The hadith about minor and major jihad is neither authentic nor good. It was not recorded in the authentic books of hadith. There are two interpretations for the hadith. The first is rejected as it undermines jihad for the cause of Allah and underestimates its significance, virtues, and necessity. The second interpretation is accepted as it stresses paying attention to striving against one's desires, training oneself, and restraining its aspirations and lusts. And you go down here, speaking from the point of isnad, chain of transmission, criticism, the hadith, speaking of isnad criticism, the hadith about minor and major jihad is neither authentic nor good. It was not recorded in the authentic books of hadith. It is neither mentioned in the two authentic books of Al-Bukhari and Muslim, the 6 books, the Muwatta of Malik, nor was it mentioned in Ahmed's Musnad, although it contains many hadiths. And so this is what you find when people are going, when you actually try looking up this hadith. This is what you run into. Muslim scholars saying, we got a problem here. And the ones who actually take it seriously, they give it a completely different meaning. Different meaning. We're talking about the major and the minor jihad. They say it's called just your daily struggles against your own desires and so on. That's the greater jihad because that's what you're normally doing. And the goal of that kind of jihad is that when you have the call to violent jihad, you're already prepared. You have full self-control over yourself, so you're not getting scared, you're not making excuses and so on. You've been training yourself for months or years that I just automatically do what Allah and Muhammad say. So the idea is, again, this is a weak hadith, but for those who take it seriously, the interpretation would be that it's the major jihad because it's just what you're normally doing. It's the everyday jihad, the struggle to bring your desires in alignment with Allah, so that when you have the call to violent jihad, you're already prepared to mindlessly submit to whatever Allah and Muhammad say.
It should also be noted, David, that the Islam Online passage, it says this is not in Bukhari or Muslim or the 6 books. The 6 books being, of course, the 6 hadith collections that are considered most reliable by Islamic scholars, and Sunan ibn Majah is one of them. And so Sunan ibn Majah has this passage saying that the best jihad is where you get bloody and your horse is wounded, and there are cognate passages in other collections that are considered reliable. So they would take precedence over this tradition that says that the greater jihad is the jihad of the self.
Yep. So guys, we're sitting here and we just got all kinds of problems already. All right, take a couple super chats here. Do you guys know of a good website where I can get cringe quotes from the Quran? I am lazy. And maybe some source that compares the Quran versus Bible, New Testament morals. Robert, your laugh is life.
Yes, it is. The religionofpeace.com is an excellent site that has a lot of the worst quotes from the Quran and comparisons, I believe they have, with New Testament morality. And so that's a good little digest, good little source for passages, and also keeps the running tally, the famous running tally of jihad attacks, of which there have been about 45,000 now since 9/11, and those are all documented there. Be sure to put the. It's not religionofpeace.com. That's a Dawa site. It's thereligionofpeace.com.
Yeah, thereligionofpeace.com. Awesome place to find quotations and so on. Answeringislam.net as well. Yes. Answeringislam.net. There you'd have to look things up topically, but you can find everything you need in pretty much every area over there. Let's see. Islamanobic. Oh, instead of Islamophobic, it's Islamanobic. Dismantling Islam by Jay Smith. It's a recommendation from Rachel. Beatrice here. My jihad is listening to Mike Winger. That's the hardest form of jihad.
That's what the Prophet said, peace be upon him.
Yeah. Unless your jihad is to fall asleep, in which case listening to Mike Winger can help. My Muslim friend keeps responding that the war violent verses was for that time, and people using them today for terror are misinformed. How would you respond to the for that time argument?
That's a lot of hooey based on the basics about the Quran in Islamic theology. That the Quran applies to all people at all times and all places. It's the perfect book that deals with all situations. The idea that this rather short book, shorter than the New Testament, has massive numbers of passages that have no applicability in modern times is ridiculous on its face, on the basis of that very simple idea that the Quran is applicable for all times and all places. It is, if you look into Islamic theology, you have some very clear understandings of passages that are superseded, that don't always apply in the modern world. But unfortunately, the traditional understanding is that the later passages that are revealed later, according to Islamic tradition, take precedence over passages that were revealed earlier. Now, this kills that argument altogether, because the passages that were revealed earlier are the ones like Surah 109, which says, you have your religion and we have ours, and you're not going to believe in my religion, I'm not going to believe in your religion. Basically, let's just leave each other alone. And then you have the later passages, fight them until persecution is no more and religion is all for Allah, and so on. And those are, because they're considered to have been revealed chronologically later, the ones that apply for all times and places. And it is Islamic theologians who say this, not the terrible Islamophobe Spencer.
Yeah, so I mean, technically, if someone wanted to say, "Oh, that was revealed for that time," in the sense of what? In the sense of just for that people, because it was revealed to those people, you could say that about any of the passages in the Quran. Any of the earlier revelations, you could say, "Well, that was revealed to those people for that time." So the first thing you would do to someone who is saying, "Hey, no, that just applies to that time," show me in the Quran where it says this just applies to people from that time. Show me that in the Quran. So that's step one. Allah claims to be perfectly clear in his commands. So if his command is, and notice what the command is, fight those who do not believe. And he introduces the passage with, "Oh, you who believe," not, "Hey, I'm talking to you guys right now, but this isn't for later Muslims." In other words, if you said, "Hey, this command to those who believe, oh, you who believe," is only for this particular group, that would be innovation, because Allah didn't say it was just for that group. This is what you get with 21st century Muslims who are embarrassed about what their book says. It says, fight those who do not believe. That's an ongoing command. There's nothing that comes after it that abrogates or cancels it. So these are the final marching orders of the Quran. These are the final marching orders. So someone says, "Hey, no, that was just for back then." Okay, great. 14 centuries of Muslims trying to conquer the world had it all wrong. With interpreting Allah's crystal clear commands. Something very odd about that. So in other words, what are the odds? 14 centuries of Muslims all got it wrong until you get to a modern westernized Muslim, or the modernized Muslim, the modern westernized Muslim is the one who got it wrong because he's interpreting the Quran through his lens as a Westerner, like Craig Considine.
A lot of Islamic apologetics, at least up until recently, has been based on trying to make Westerners think that Islam is benign, and so it smooths out the rough edges. You know, Aisha wasn't really 9, she was really 18 or whatever. And Muhammad didn't really fight wars. He only just said fight in self-defense. All these things are designed to make Islam more palatable to Westerners, and it works. And you get Western converts, and then a lot of them get buyer's remorse because they get in and then they realize they've been lied to.
And that's, I keep telling people, Robert, over when me and AP are doing shows, people have no clue how good they have it. It was, even if you just go back to 2013, it was a sad, lonely world for us. It's it's not just the Huffington Post. Every news source was just bombarding people. Every politician was bombarding people with these ideas. And there's like a handful of us trying to take on everyone in every position of power and just being called racist, bigots, Islamophobes, for when we're the ones saying, look at what it actually says. Can we look? No, we can't look at what it actually says. You're evil. And it just sucked back then. And now, like, people don't know how good they have it now, where the Dawa guys now admit that Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl, that there's a death penalty for leaving Islam. Now they admit all the things that we struggled for years. That was our jihad. That was our struggle, getting people to actually pay attention, pay the slightest bit of attention to what the sources really say. That was that was some rough times. Glad it's paying off though. Even with Craig Considine, as we're about to see here in a couple of minutes.
Indeed.
Mr. Spencer, I just wanted to thank you for all your work. I will keep supporting you. It's unfortunate the world is the way it is. God bless you, sir.
Thank you. Please hit Patreon under my name, Robert Spencer, or support Jihad Watch at jihadwatch.org. People don't know. Another thing that we had to deal with 10, 15 years ago was all this nonsense that came out from very wealthy organizations saying that there was this Islamophobia industry that was making big money telling people that Islam was bad when it was really benign and cuddly and lovable. Mm-hmm. And that actually they had all the money. They had millions and millions of dollars. But we had we were operating on a shoestring then, and it's gotten much more difficult now. So if you can help at all, it would be very gratefully received and much needed.
Everyone who was doing it back then went into massive debt trying to deal with it because every doors get slammed in your face. You can't do certain things. They get you shut down no matter what you do. And so the only people who kept at it were the people who said, "I'm going to do it anyway. You can just try to destroy me in every way possible. I'm still coming after your profit because someone needs to do it." Anyway, that's why I keep telling you guys, you got it way better than we had it back then. It's a different world. Good job, Craig. I think baloney can be halal. Maybe only if it's phony, though.
Well, as phony as his articles. So there you go.
Joshua said, I graduated high school in 13 while you were top George Washington. Yeah.
Top G Washington.
Yeah, top G Washington. And he was graduating back when I was top G Washington. Michelle says, your books are fabulous, Robert. I've another pre-order. Thanks for all you do. I'm sure you have rewards in heaven. Don't forget, Sunan Abu Dawud 203. At least you have more hikmah. Thank Muhammad. Sunan Abu Dawud 203. Yikes. That's, of course, the eyes of the leather straps of the anus.
Hey, the book has just come out. I mean, it's not actually out for sale yet, but I got my copies. It looks beautiful. Get yours. Get it pre-ordered now. Muhammad, a critical biography. I'm hoping to get David to do a total cage match about this, about the historicity of Muhammad, the historicity of the various stories about Muhammad. So stay tuned for that. David, the challenge has been thrown down.
I'm not going easy on you, Robert. I'm going to say that this is a horrible, ridiculous view, and I'm going to humiliate you in front of everybody.
Okay. Many have claimed to have done it, but none yet have. Maybe you'll be the first.
Hikmah of the day with Mr. Robert Spencer, Sahih Muslim 146. That's the famous passage that Islam is going to recede between the two mosques as a snake, as a serpent crawls back into its hole. It's just a funny hadith.
Yeah, I love that one. You know, it's like no one is more odious in the sight of Allah on the day of judgment than the one who calls himself King of Kings. I mean, you can't get more revealing than that.
Indeed. Robert is a modern-day John Quincy Adams who knew about Islam and the issues of its history, so who traveled here with 1.21 gigawatts of Islamophobia. Yeah, it was interesting that you could find more knowledgeable politicians in the 1800s than you can now today when jihad is all over the place.
Well, it was just common sense. They just read the texts and they reasoned from them. And they didn't have to think, oh, I'm going to be called racist and Islamophobic if I say what's in the Quran. So John Quincy Adams, I'm honored by the comparison and thank you. But fact is, all he read the book. He said what was in it.
Mm-hmm. For Robert, dude has been keeping it real for decades. While YouTube closes all of his monetary gates, Sir St. Peter better throw open those gates when you arrive. Respect and love.
I hope so. Thank you. Pray for me. Thank you.
All right, let's get back to our new hero. Our new hero. Let's go. Let's go. Let's see. Let's go. We want to get to his Considine's dramatic conversion. So. Bust through these real quick. What studying Muhammad taught me about Islam. Muhammad's treatment of religious minorities and his basic moral beliefs have encouraged me to further promote dialogue between Muslims, Christians, and Jews, and to improve my own everyday character and conduct. So yeah, it's great. Yeah, Dr. Considine, how's that dialogue between Muslims, Christians, and Jews going for you right now?
It's just incredible. You know, Muhammad was the most intolerant of all people against any dissent. I've mentioned it several times, but these poets who made fun of him in their verses and opposed him, he had them assassinated, praised his followers for doing it. Asma bint Marwan, Ka'b bin al-Ashraf, etc., etc. He had a mosque burnt down. He actually burnt down the mosque, destroyed the mosque after the Battle of Tabuk. That was a mosque that had been set up outside of his auspices in northern Arabia. That's not a very well-known story. You can read about it in Muhammad, a critical biography. But people came to him and they said they've got a mosque over there. So he said, yeah, we'll stop by there on the way back. So he goes to try to fight the Christians at Tabuk. They weren't there, and he comes back and destroys their mosque. He was not tolerant of diversity or plurality, anything of the kind. Here again, you got to wonder, what Muhammad is Craig talking about? Maybe there's some other guy he's got in mind.
Yeah, weird stuff. I mean, this is like the most extreme cherry picking I've ever seen with this. Look at this. Muslims worldwide have recently joined together to celebrate Mawlid an-Nabi, the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad. This day is an opportunity for Muslims and non-Muslims, such as myself, a Catholic, to reflect upon the life and legacy of the Prophet of Islam. Yeah, that's what Catholics need to do on Muhammad's birthday. Yeah. In this short essay, I want to share with you what I've learned about Muhammad and how his legacy informs my understanding of Islam. Muhammad's beliefs on how to treat religious minorities, subjugate them, make him a universal champion of human rights, particularly as it pertains to freedom of conscience, freedom of worship, and the right for minorities to have protection during times of strife. Yeah, the guy who said, I have been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah. Famous quotation. It's all over the 6 main collections. The guy who said that Allah had revealed to him, fight those who do not believe in Allah. That's the guy who's the champion of freedom of conscience, freedom of worship, and the right for minorities to have protection during times of strife.
This is just pure fiction. I don't see where he's getting this at all. I mean, of course, all the rest of it is fiction, too. The George Washington business was silly enough. But there is so much disconfirming evidence on this. It's just astonishing to think. Surely he couldn't really believe this.
Yeah, that's what's amazing. It's like, He's either like the most clueless person in the world who's being fed information and does not have the ability to know if it's true or false, or he knows and he's just a massive, massive liar.
Yeah.
So we could continue reading that. Let's get a little more of the gist here. Why a Christian can view Muhammad as a prophet. Well, that's good to know. Muslims aren't at risk of anything when they say, I believe in Jesus. Yeah, because Muhammad said Jesus is a Muslim. However, if someone says, I'm a Christian and I believe in Muhammad as a prophet, people might start to question one's credibility as a self-professed Christian.
Yeah.
Because Muhammad, if you view him as a prophet, contradicts core teachings of Christianity. And so how would you be a Christian and affirm him as a prophet? Say, zoom through this real quick. As an advocate of interfaith dialogue, particularly between Christians and Muslims, I'm often faced with the issue of conversion. People ask me, if you admire Prophet Muhammad so much, why don't you convert to Islam then? If you love him so much, put a ring on it. Why don't you accept him as the seal? The seal.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
I see these questions popping up on my Twitter and Facebook feeds more than you might imagine. Basically, me admiring Prophet Muhammad isn't enough for Muslims. In their eyes, I must take a few concrete steps towards Islam and be fully recognized as a true believer. Otherwise, I'm just a weirdo Christian who respects Muhammad but doesn't recognize him as the man. Christians, on the other hand, have called me pseudo-Catholic. I'd call you pseudo-intellectual if this is your level of research into issues. And infidel for my positive writings about Muhammad. For these Islamophobes, I'm... Wait. The Islamophobes are the ones who are pointing out, how are you a Catholic if you believe that Muhammad is a prophet when he contradicts the teachings of the Catholic Church about the death of Jesus, his resurrection, his divine nature? And so they point that out and says, you're an Islamophobe. For these Islamophobes, I'm quite simply a heretic. There's no way around it. Perhaps my work is irritating to Muslims and Christians because I'm pushing a few traditional boundaries. He's such a boundary pusher, and
he's a courageous guy.
Yeah, and making people question the very heart of their religious traditions and identities. Who's sitting there going, I have to question my religious identity because this powerful article about how Muhammad is like George Washington. Oh my goodness, I have to question everything I've ever believed. Some like narcissistic personality disorder here, Robert.
Yeah, as well as a total divorce from reality. It's just astonishing to me. Unbelievers are those who say Allah is the Messiah, Jesus the Son of Mary. That's in the Quran twice, 517, 572. That's a direct refutation, a direct rejection, I should say, of the divinity of Christ, which is a core Christian belief. How can he say this guy's a prophet and affirm things in one book that are denied in the other?
Yes, according to the Quran, Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox, if you're Christian, you are an unbeliever. And he's saying, okay, well, I believe in this prophet who calls me as a Catholic an unbeliever. That's what he's saying.
Yep.
Wild, wild stuff. And here's sort of the conclusion. We're not going through this entire article, but let me wrap this up by returning to one question. Is Prophet Muhammad worthy of admiration among Christians? No. I believe he is. Well, then you're wrong. His central concern, watch this, my goodness, this guy. His central concern was to lead mankind on the right path. By right path, I mean justice, mercy, compassion, love, tranquility, and peace. For these reasons...
that's Muhammad. Yeah. That's what I think of when I think of old Mo.
Yeah, when I think of Muhammad, I don't think about him banging a 9-year-old girl or telling his followers it's okay to beat their wives into submission, or taking the wife of his own adopted son, or ordering his followers to execute apostates or to violently subjugate Jews and Christians. I don't think of him saying that the end will not come until you Muslims fight the Jews and the Jews are hiding behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees call out, say, hey, there's a Jew behind me, come kill him. No, I don't think of any of that. I just think of justice, mercy, compassion, love, tranquility, and peace. For these reasons, I elevate him to prophet. On what planet does this guy think he gets to elevate someone to prophet status because of his delusions and fantasies?
Wow.
Oh,
this is narcissism on a massive scale, yeah.
This is absolutely insane stuff. What do we have here? Oh, we got a couple tweets by him. Writing during his first visit to Mecca in 1964, Malcolm X said, America needs to understand Islam because this is the one religion that erases from its society the race problem. Guys, I encourage you all to look up statistics on racism in the world. Global statistics on racism. Muslim societies are among the most racist on the planet.
And there are hadiths where Muhammad is very clearly saying the Arabs are elevated over other people. Islam is a vehicle for Arab supremacism. As David has noted many times, this is where Allah, the supreme being who created the universe, created everything. You got him saying the most important thing he wants for human beings is to live like a 7th century Arab. You got to pray in Arabic. You got to dress like an Arab. Most of the converts take the name of some Arab. And that is not an anti-racist idea. That is based on the assumption that Arabism, Arabiya, is superior to other races and other ways of living.
And we're just supposed to ignore everything that's, once again, we're just supposed to ignore everything. The real problem here, because we read this stuff and we know what else is in the Muslim sources. The people who are in his Twitter feed and the people who are reading Huffington Post articles, they don't have that knowledge. They don't have that background. So when they see Dr. Craig Considine, Catholic professor at Rice University, saying this, they think he's spouting good information. Mm-hmm. And that's such a huge problem. I mean, people were misled by this guy, seriously.
Yeah, he's not just a fool, he's a dangerous fool.
Here's a perfect example. Prophet Muhammad was defamed, insulted, mocked, and violently attacked by those who opposed him. How did he respond? By remaining calm, ignoring the insults, and focusing on his mission. Responding with violence was never an option. The Paris beheading is an affront to his teaching. So the Paris beheading he's referring to here is where a teacher was beheaded for showing kids Muhammad cartoons after warning kids that they were going to discuss this as part of their free speech exercise. And if anyone didn't want to see it, they could leave the room and so on. And what does he say? How did he respond? How did Muhammad respond? So keep in mind, the guy who cut that teacher's head off, he knew what the Muslim sources say. Mm-hmm. He knew that, Robert, you just pointed out a couple minutes ago, you had poets making fun of him in poems. He ordered his followers to kill them.
Yep. And there are numerous stories of this kind. Not one, not two. There are many stories about different people that Muhammad ordered his followers to kill, took volunteers, somebody volunteered, they went and killed them, and then he rewarded the killers. There are many stories of this kind, and so it's very clear he was absolutely intolerant of criticism and dissent.
Yeah, and I mean, the times when he endured criticism were times when he had to put up with criticism because he wasn't in a position to kill people over it. So when he and his followers were a tiny minority in Mecca, that's when, we're not fighting back against these guys who are making fun of me and so on. Once he had people around him who could carry out his commands, if you insulted him, you had to die. In fact, when he returned to Mecca, we've read this, Robert, in Ibn Ishaq. He returned to Mecca. He had a list of people who had made fun of him, and he couldn't retaliate when he was there before. And he said, even if these people are clinging to the Kaaba, kill them. And it was people like singing girls who had made fun of him by singing a song, making fun of him. They had to die.
And the guy who, one of his scribes who was taking down the Quran and then lost his faith because he didn't hear what Muhammad said, and he read it back to him with a change, and Muhammad said, yeah, put it that way. And he thought, wait a minute, I'm not the prophet. Muhammad's the prophet. So he fled to Mecca. But then Muhammad, he comes and begs for mercy when Muhammad gets to Mecca, and he leaves, and Muhammad doesn't say anything. And then finally he leaves, and Muhammad says, why didn't you kill him? To his followers. And the followers say, you didn't tell us to. And you should have given us a signal with your eyes. And he says, it's not fitting for a prophet to give signals with his eyes.
Yeah. And so it's just weird. There's like no connection to reality. Muhammad, who could not deal with criticism, and if he had to deal with it because he was completely outnumbered and couldn't kill someone, he would come back later when he was more powerful and then say this person has to die.
Yep.
That's the Muhammad that Craig Considine is writing about. Just wanted to go to these couple super chats because there's one that's related to this. Let's see. For David, thank you, Dairo. Jihad Watch led me to the Dizzle. Thank you, Robert. That's cool.
Well, then I've done one good thing in this world.
His sensual concern is most likely his approval of Momo, the Chomo homo, and Diaz, the doggo relationship. Yeah. Yeah, something like that. And here's the comment I wanted to get to because it's connected to what we were just saying. Mosh Cohen says, "Hi guys, where was the story that someone was about to be sentenced to death for killing a woman until he said, 'But prophet, she laughed at you'?" Yeah, that's in Sunan Abu Dawood, I think the one you're referring to. That's where a man had his slave girl, who was also the mother of his children, who was making fun of Muhammad. He stabbed her to death. Her blood ran all over her one of her children and so on. Then he puts the body out there. They find the body. And Muhammad says, "I order whoever did this to step forward because there's about to be judgment." And then the guy said, "But Muhammad, she kept making fun of you." Muhammad said, no retaliation against this guy. But I mean, think about this. What evidence was there?
Yep.
It's
just like in Pakistan today.
Yeah, any man can go and kill a woman, or even in the situations where you get mob violence, someone says, "Hey, he desecrated the Quran." That's where it comes from, ladies and gentlemen. It comes from the first generation. If you murder, that's the point. I don't know if this woman said one word about Muhammad. He could have just stabbed her to death, but if you want to avoid the death penalty, Muhammad, she made fun of you. Oh, okay, yep, this guy's fine then. Yep. You just say it. You could just say it. Why'd you kill that? Why'd you kill that guy? He burned the Quran. Yeah, he did.
Oh,
he did
well
that.
Well then, carry on.
Carry on. Nothing to see here, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. All kinds of stupid all over the place. All right. Now let's go ahead and get to these last couple of tweets here. The Quran and New Testament are strikingly similar in many ways. Both texts often speak of the need for us to take care of the poor, the needy, the oppressed, among others. Truly, compassion for others is a central duty that comes with being Christian or Muslim. It's our sacred duty.
That puts me in mind of Quran 48:29. Muhammad is the apostle of Allah. Those who follow him are merciful to one another, are ruthless to unbelievers, merciful to one another.
Yeah, why didn't Dr. Craig Considine quote that, ladies and gentlemen? Guys, that's an important reference that Robert just gave. Quran 48:29, Surah 48, verse 29. Muslims are ruthless towards non-Muslims, merciful only among themselves. In other words, if you were to see compassion for others, Islam and Christianity both teach this. No, in Islam, you are compassionate to your fellow Muslims. So this is what I talk about. It's similar to equivocation in that people are going to interpret what he's saying and not understand what these things actually mean. They don't know what this actually means. To say that Muhammad encouraged these things. Yeah, merciful towards your fellow Muslims, not to unbelievers. Whereas in Christianity, it's love your enemies.
The obligation of zakat. You give it to other Muslims. You are not allowed by Islamic law to give zakat to non-Muslims. So the charity is only for one's fellow Muslims.
Here's a gem. A Christian student asked me today, "What have you learned in your studies on Prophet Muhammad?" I answered, "The main thing is that he had a lot of compassion for orphans, widows, and the disenfranchised." The student responded, "Sounds a bit like Jesus." I said, "Exactly."
Yeah.
Exactly.
You remember, David, when Jesus raided the oasis where the Jews lived and massacred them and then killed the husband and the father of this very nice-looking woman and married her on the spot and had sex with her on the battlefield where all the dead bodies were strewn. And this was compassion for a widow, wasn't it?
Yeah, but she wanted it that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She's like,
But,
oh, this guy that killed my my husband and father is so smoking hot. I especially liked when they tortured my husband before killing him, and they lit a fire on his chest and before chopping his head off to find out where the money was hidden.
yep.
He's so dreamy.
This is Safiya bint Huyai, folks. It's a real story in Islamic tradition. There is, of course, no correspondence to anything like that anywhere in Christianity. And just the idea that Jesus and Muhammad are both compassionate to widows, well, it's insulting, really. It insults the intelligence to anybody with even rudimentary knowledge of either one or both.
And so, guys, this is what we've been dealing with. This is like tip of the iceberg with this guy. This is what we were dealing with for years. It's him saying these things and being famous for it and being paraded around to give speeches in various places about how wonderful Muhammad was. And this guy, his articles being published all over the place, explaining how Muhammad is one of the greatest people of all time. So great and wonderful in every possible way. He's just like George Washington. He's just like Jesus. He's just anything you like. If you love your wife, Muhammad's just like your wife. If you love your husband, oh, he's just like. If you love your kids, oh, Muhammad's just like your kids. It didn't matter. Whatever you like, Muhammad was exactly like whatever it was that you like, and so on. So this was everyone back in the day. He's just like the most extreme version of it. This is what we were dealing with for years, and all of a sudden, a couple days ago, we get this. We get this here. Dr. Craig Considine says, I used to collaborate with Muslim Brotherhood entities in the USA and beyond. Shocker. He was collaborating with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, Robert, for anyone who doesn't know, what's the Muslim Brotherhood?
The Muslim Brotherhood is an international organization founded in Egypt in 1928 in order to restore the caliphate. The caliphate having been abolished in Turkey in 1924. The caliphate, for those who may not know, is the Khalifa means successor. And the Caliph is the successor of Muhammad as the military, political, and spiritual leader of the Muslims. The Caliphate is the ideal state for the Muslims, and traditionally in Sunni Islam, it's understood that, actually in Shiite Islam too, but it's a little different in some ways, that the Caliphate supersedes all nationalities, all nations, and the Muslim owes allegiance to it alone. The Muslim, in other words, is an international citizen of the Caliphate, not the citizen of the United States or France or Germany or Britain or whatever. And so the Caliphate was abolished in 1924. The Islamic jihadis say that was when our troubles began. That was when the Islamic world lost its unity and its power. And we have to restore the unity and power of the Islamic world by restoring the Caliphate. The Muslim Brotherhood was started 4 years after the abolition of the Caliphate in order to bring about this restoration of the unity and power of the Ummah, the global Islamic community. And the Muslim Brotherhood is very active all around the world. Hamas says that it is the Muslim Brotherhood in Gaza. And every major Islamic organization in the United States, Council on American Islamic Relations, Muslim American Society, Islamic Society of North America, all of them, they are connected to the Muslim Brotherhood in various ways. And so when he's saying he's worked with the Muslim Brotherhood for years, he's working with a group that, according to a captured internal document, the Muslim Brotherhood Strategy for North America, the explanatory memorandum on the Muslim Brotherhood Strategy for North America, says the brothers must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands, which is a Quranic quote about the Jews actually destroying themselves by their own hands. And so the idea is that the people in the West will also destroy ourselves by our own hands, and it's working great, by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it falls and Allah's religion is victorious over other religions. That's what Craig's been working with.
Now, Robert, I'm a little new to this and I'm a little slow. So let me just ask, if this guy's collaborating with the Muslim Brotherhood, because we're a little confused as to where he's getting the absurd claims he's making, whether he's just lying or he's being fed this information and he doesn't know any better. Would it be in the best, if you're the Muslim Brotherhood and you're obsessed with reestablishing the caliphate and so on, would it be in your best interest to keep people in the dark about Islam and to keep them deceived about Islam to help win converts and to silence critics and so on in the West?
Why, yes, David. Why, yes, absolutely, 100%. You want people to be ignorant and complacent so that they don't have their guard up and they don't realize that there are these people who are actively subversive, who are trying to destroy the existing order and establish Sharia after it falls. It seems unbelievable to most Americans anyway that anybody would even try to do that. So you have that cover. It's just like roaches, you know, we're operating under the cover of darkness, and when you turn on the light, they scatter. And it's the same thing. You want people deceived, blinded, in the dark about Islam so that they do not realize this initiative is going on.
And so, in other words, this tweet made things very clear, because we're wondering what is going on here. And then, oh, now it makes sense. He's collaborating with the Muslim Brotherhood and they're feeding him nonsense to help keep people in a state of ignorance while they build up their forces and expand.
Whether he was in on it or not.
Yeah.
Maybe he's never cracked open Ibn Ishaq and all the rest of them. Maybe he's never read the Hadith. He has no idea what Muhammad really says. Or he's been in on it with the Muslim Brotherhood all along.
Let's go ahead and check this out here. Hey, who just said this? Eric L. said, the quote is to love thy neighbor. It is not love thy enemy. No, you have both. You have both, Eric L. I don't know what you're babbling about. Read Matthew 5.
Indeed.
Jesus says, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you so that you may be like your Father in heaven. So not sure what you're talking about.
Read the whole book. Don't be like Craig.
Yeah,
Read the whole thing.
Don't be a Considine. Don't be a Considine. So let's go ahead and read this tweet. I used to collaborate with Muslim Brotherhood entities in the USA and beyond. Well, now that makes sense. My distancing from them occurred around 2020 when its branches tried to curtail my views and hijack my social media accounts to fundraise for its agenda. I was uncomfortable with that. After all the nonsense you did about comparing Muhammad to Jesus and George Washington, that's where you draw the line? That's what makes you uncomfortable? Fundraising?
That's very strange, because he must have made a lot of money for whoever he was working for, because this is just what people wanted to hear. You know, Americans are decent people in general, and we've always been taught, you know, when I was a kid, I remember, doesn't matter what you believe, as long as you're sincere, and all the religions are good, and they help you to be good people, but you don't have to worry about all the niceties of dogma. Now, of course, there's a lot of fallacies. There's a lot of things that are false about that statement. But this is something a lot of Americans take for granted. And they generally think that all religions are good. Mm-hmm. And so this was just what people wanted to hear, that Muhammad was this wonderful guy, and we really didn't have to worry about Islam or jihad. Because obviously the corollary, the unspoken corollary is that if Craig Considine's telling the truth and Muhammad is all these great things, then the vast majority of Muslims must know this, and they must be no threat. They must be our loving brothers.
So think about this, guys. He's being fed. He said he was collaborating with them. So where's he getting the stupid ideas that they're using him as a deception megaphone, right? If the Muslim Brotherhood says that there will be people who their alarm goes off and they're like, wait a minute, I can't be, I need to be on my guard against the Muslim Brotherhood. And so they need people like Craig Considine to say it for them. So they're feeding him the stuff. Yeah, hey, Craig, could you just compare Muhammad to George Washington? Yeah, do it. He has no problem with that. He's glad to help. But eventually they say, hey, let us use your social media accounts to fundraise for building our caliphate. And he says, no! If you want me to spout complete idiotic nonsense, that's fine. But I draw the line at fundraising. So he says, I was uncomfortable with all that. I refused. As time progressed, the Muslim Brotherhood network got nasty towards me because I was not on board with its Islamist politics. You're defending these guys for years, but you're not on board with its Islamist politics, which is basically all the Muslim Brotherhood is. It says, it proceeded to stick its online troll network on me, tried to cancel and hack me, and threatened me. They threatened him. So when he was their pet and their puppet for years, boy, they loved him and showered him with praise and who knows what else. And as soon as, hey, I don't want to fundraise for your organization because I'm starting to doubt what it is you're trying to accomplish in the world, then they threaten him.
Oh, yeah.
It called me a fraud, a phony, a hypocrite, and worse things.
Yeah. You got to admit they had a point there, David. He is a fraud.
You fraud. You phony. You hypocrite. I'm like, amen, Muslim Brotherhood. Gosh, now we're collaborating with them, Robert.
Yep. But, you have an excellent point there. I think that was worth emphasizing, that he was very valuable to them. Because he's a professor at Rice University, he's got the doctorate, he says he's a Christian and all that. And, I remember Ibrahim Hooper used to put out of the Council on American Islamic Relations, used to put out a story every year. He might still put it out about around Christmas time, about how Jesus and Muhammad have more in common than you might think. And it's a lot of dawah nonsense and lies and half-truths. But the thing is, he's Ibrahim Hooper. And he has a reputation. He's a known quantity. He's been out there on the front of CARE for many years. CARE has been very belligerent in opposing counter-terror measures and openly connected, not openly, but connected to the Muslim Brotherhood in a manner acknowledged by the Justice Department and so on. So that's not going to get the kind of traction that Craig Considine can get.
That is correct.
And people will dismiss it as coming from Ibrahim Hooper. They'll say, well, maybe he's exaggerating or he's not being honest. But old Craig, he's got this stature that was extremely useful to the Brotherhood Network.
Yeah, can you imagine this? So for years, people are reading this stuff on Huffington Post and so on. And they're thinking, oh, well, maybe we wouldn't trust the Muslim Brotherhood saying this, but this guy's a professor at Rice University and a Catholic, so we can trust this guy. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, he's being fed his talking points from the Muslim Brotherhood. He's collaborating with the Muslim Brotherhood. He's working for the Muslim Brotherhood.
And then somehow he realizes that he doesn't like their politics. Very strange. We need more details here, Craig. Tell us more about what happened, but so far he has not. He stands by his stories about Muhammad, and yet somehow he's broken with the Brotherhood.
And so at the end of that third paragraph there, they are still on the prowl, and I'm still under threat. He's in danger. Well, maybe you need to pick better people to collaborate with in the future, yes. Craig. I used to defend the Muslim Brotherhood, but not anymore. No chance. I will not support groups that threaten me, like the Quran, and seek the destruction of the only country that I'm a citizen of, the USA.
That's amazing. That's amazing right there, David, because that's another thing that the Dawa guys have been denying for 15 years now, more than that the Brotherhood has any such plan to subvert and destroy the United States and establish Sharia. It's right in their explanatory memoranda, but there have been all kinds of efforts to show, just like with the Quran's violent verses, that they didn't really mean it. It was just a discussion. They're just kicking around various possibilities, things like that. Actually, this was a high-level Brotherhood operative mapping out a strategy, and it was taken very seriously in the Justice Department at the time. And so it's the same. It's really remarkable that he is acknowledging that now.
Oh, yeah.
When they've been denying it for so many years.
Yeah, and so he acknowledges what the Muslim Brotherhood is about, even after acknowledging that he had been collaborating with them, and that was why he's been doing a lot of the stupid stuff he's been doing. Mm-hmm. But then, they seek the destruction of the USA, and then check this out, last paragraph. I learned the hard way through lived experience that advocacy and activism for a noble cause, and he puts that in quotation marks, for a noble cause like combating Islamophobia might just be a load of political BS. In other words, the only thing he's done for his entire career, he's saying it was all political BS.
No kidding, really?
That he thought he was doing for a noble cause, and it was all just BS. And he says, take this as a cautionary tale. Be careful and be weary when you are fighting for justice. Be weary. Yeah, you want to not be weary.
Yeah.
When you are fighting for justice, all is not what it seems. My goodness, that is huge, right?
It is. It is. It's astonishing, really, because it looks like he's even questioning the whole idea of Islamophobia. Now, David, you and I know Islamophobia is a scam, that it was made up in order to intimidate people into thinking it's wrong to oppose jihad violence and Sharia oppression of women. It's wrong to speak the truth about what Islam teaches and so on. It's designed to make people scared. And yet, for somebody who was one of the leading Islamophobia propagandists to say this, well, it's just amazing. It's like if Nancy Pelosi endorsed Trump.
Yeah, indeed. Someone asked, Paul Anchor says, how old is this tweet? What is this, like a week old? It's recent.
Yeah, it's not very long ago at all.
Yeah, it's about a week old. It's about a week old. So this is brand new. And we were caught totally off guard because we were like, this is the biggest drooling on Muhammad fanboy in the world. I mean, my goodness, Craig, get a room as much as you love this guy. And then out of nowhere, combating Islamophobia, a noble cause. Guys, be careful what you're falling for. He was the king of it. He was the most extreme version of that I can think of.
Yep.
And then, hey, he warns people, guys, things aren't what they seem. So when you think you're fighting for justice and so on, be careful what you're actually fighting for. And couple follow-ups here. Feline Musk says, let me get this straight. This is a response to that tweet. Feline Musk says, let me get this straight. You're, in your bio, an award-winning professor and author, a sociologist no less, and you teach at a rather prestigious university, Rice, and it took you until 2020 to know that the Muslim Brotherhood was evil, and only they came for you? And his response is not, no, what? No, the Muslim Brotherhood's not evil. Better late than never, right?
Yeah.
True. Absolutely.
I mean, you got to wonder, because a lot of these guys, the Americans that the Brotherhood has, you got to wonder if they ever have second thoughts about what they've gotten into. These Islamic apologists and Dawa guys who are converts or non-converts like Craig, who are essentially converts in effect, and they have private second thoughts that they don't dare enunciate. And so we got to hand it to Craig Considine for all the criticism justly we have leveled upon him in this tonight. At the same time, my hat's off to you, Craig, for having the courage to speak out in this way.
Yeah, Black Angel says 2020. Yeah, so that's when he said that he realized that there were some problems when they were trying to do the fundraising. As far as these actual tweets, when it says July 24th, that's July 24th as in 6 days ago. So this is new stuff. This is new stuff. But he's saying he realized there was a problem 4 years ago. He's just now that he's refusing to go along with what they say and they're threatening him, now he's being vocal about his opposition to the Muslim Brotherhood. And here are some of his tweets from the past couple days. He says, in this video, Kamala Harris objected to using the words radical Islamic terrorism to describe terrorism carried out by Muslims. I used to say the same kind of thing. I thought I was combating Islamophobia in doing so. I was wrong. It is not Islamophobic to identify groups like Hamas as terrorists. It is intellectually lazy and immoral to cover up the reality of things. It's like, it's intellectually lazy and immoral to do what I was doing for years. and
says that he stands by.
Yeah, this is really, really weird stuff. So it's a weird thing where he's basically saying we were right all along. So he's still going to have disagreements about Muhammad and so on. But as far as the agenda of Muslim groups and stuff like that, and Islamophobia. He's basically saying we were right and he was wrong. And it's great. It's amazing to hear him acknowledge that. Guys, if you are trapped in a stupid position for years, do not stay, and you finally realize that it's stupid and you were wrong, come out and say you're wrong. Hats off to the man for coming right out and saying, I was wrong about this stuff. We think he's wrong about some other stuff, but that is huge. Lots of people would not want to admit that they've spent years of their life fighting the completely wrong battle and actually helping terrorists. Not a lot of people would want to come right out and admit that. So hats off to him for that. But he says it's intellectually lazy and immoral to cover up the reality of things. So he's saying what he was doing was immoral. Worse,
David, I think that it would be a great idea now to put out new editions of Craig Considine's books about Muhammad with "It is intellectually lazy and immoral to cover up the reality of things" written right on the cover on the top.
That'd be awesome.
And so then people know what they're getting.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
Yeah.
So he says it's intellectually lazy and immoral to cover up the reality of things. Worse, it is absurd to focus on policing language instead of protecting lives. Oh my goodness. This guy's saying some of the exact same things we've been saying. You guys are focused on what we're saying. Why don't you focus on saving people who are going to be victims of this stuff? And condemning people that want, instead of protecting lives, and condemning people that want to kill your citizens. Do words now matter more than life?
Well,
where'd this guy come from?
Acting all this time. I don't know. It's really weird. He sounds like us here.
This is like some Invasion of the Body Snatchers stuff. Where's the real Craig Considine, and what have you done with him? Someone snatched his body or something like this. He says that it's time to call a spade a spade. All right, last one here. Dr. Craig Considine says there is an unholy alliance between anarchists, socialists, communists, and Islamists. You think? They are animated by the scourge of post-colonial thought that has polluted Western University. Dude, it sounds like you were on the same exact page until a week ago. Yeah, absolutely. Much of the left in the West is not progressive. It is the opposite. It is regressive. Countless liberals have been duped by Islamists, just as many of the latter have been duped by Marxism. The left is decaying, and it is unfortunate to witness. Watching it praise groups like Hamas is the final straw for many lifelong liberals. Consider me one of them. Oh, so he's saying the final straw. He's saying he's breaking with the left. He's saying that watching it praise Hamas is the final straw. He says he's done being with them.
That's terrific. That's great. I love that. But really, here again, you got to wonder. It's not as if the left's love for Hamas just arose after October 7th. The left has loved Hamas for years. The left has loved all the jihad groups for years. This alliance, how many years have we been talking about the leftist Islamic alliance? We talk about it regularly every week on This Week at Jihad, and he's acting like it's a new thing.
Yeah, and so it's another situation where I never noticed that. And look at this last one here. These are the useful idiots that Prime Minister Netanyahu was referring to today in the chamber of the House of Representatives. Now he's citing Benjamin Netanyahu when he called the leftists who align with Islam and support Hamas useful idiots of Hamas, and he's agreeing with Netanyahu. My goodness. Changes. That is a lot of changing right there. That is like one of the most dramatic turnarounds I've seen in a long, long time. That's crazy, 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 crazy.
Yeah, it is remarkable. And we can hope that he'll keep going and renounce his writings on Muhammad and write something more accurate about Muhammad so that people might come to it who were misled by his earlier writings.
Yeah, so to see someone who's been I've seen in the comments say he's been a useful idiot his entire career. Yeah, that's what's shocking. Yeah. You have a guy who's been a useful idiot of Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood and everyone else for his entire career. And all of a sudden, guys, I think I was wrong. Hats off to that guy. All right. Yep. So we're done. I've got a couple of super chats here and then we're out. See, in the aftermath of the Hamas takeover, they use this excuse No, they use this to execute thousands of people they called Zionist collaborators or simply apostates. Zero evidence. I think he's talking about that quotation from earlier from Sunan Abu Dawud, where you can kill someone for criticizing Muhammad or something like that. He says, Mosh Cohen says, Jesus is our prophet too, and we love him. Continues to compare Jesus to a person that was literally his direct opposite. At least they're funny. Yes, they are. Here we go. Luke says, Muhammad's Boom Boom Room featuring Robert Spencer. Yes, that is actually the next episode of Muhammad's Boom Boom Room, Luke. It will be Robert Spencer. It will be Muhammad meets Salman Rushdie. That is the next one that will be up. Mosh Cohen says, what we're currently seeing in the West is the life work of Abu al-Banna, the Dawa practices of Taqiyya and Kitman to win the hearts works. It does. It's deception. And it's worked for a long time, and we basically got access to Muslim sources, the most trusted Muslim sources, and to the internet where we can respond to things around the world and respond to them rapidly. We basically got all that at just the right time.
Indeed.
And 5 Ds of Dawah: deceive, deny, distract, distrust, and destroy. Yep. You got to dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge. And last one here. America needs to understand KFC because this is the one restaurant that erases from its society the haram problem. Yep. Understand KFC. Powerful.
There'll be many more like KFC before we're done.
Yeah, they have to. All right, Robert, any final thoughts on Craig Considine before we cut out?
Yeah, Craig, if you see this, I do want to say, look, I love you, man. I admire your courage in acknowledging you were wrong. I invite you to follow through. We may have been a little bit rough with the rhetoric, but really the fact is that everything we're saying is accurate. The sources about the Islamic sources about Muhammad back up what we're saying about Muhammad and not what you have said about Muhammad. So I hope you'll continue to follow through. Your invitation to chat with me on the Jihad Watch channel, it's an open invitation. I'd love to chat. It would not be a debate, not a gotcha situation, but we would be speaking honestly about what's in the Islamic texts. I think it's time that it would be salutary for you to take a look at those.
And so, guys, I would suggest finding those tweets that Robert's talking about where they're discussing this and encouraging Craig Considine to take Robert up on that offer and get on that show. All right, so I guess we're out. There's one last super chat here. Craig Considine should have been hearing you, D. Wood, and Robert Spencer, etc. God knows how many Craig has wrongly influenced. Thank God he has come to his senses. Thank you, D. Wood and Robert Spencer. Yeah, guys, it's this is also something I've been saying is it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work. It's some miserable stuff because you're getting blasted from every side. I mean, especially going back 15 years, you said something about Islam. You got blasted by Muslims saying you're a liar, even if you're quoting directly out of their sources. They're saying you're a liar. Atheists are saying, well, you can't criticize another religion because you're religious too, and all religions are equally stupid. So you catch it from atheists. And then you got Christians saying, what? You're supposed to love everyone and you're criticizing their stuff? That's not loving. That will hurt their feelings. You got blasted from every single direction. And you have people like Robert who just kept at it no matter what. And the bottom line is it's a lot of hard work. It takes a long time. If you're relentless, it works. It works. It may take a while. It may take 10 or 20 years or something like that. But the truth does come out. So anyway, I added a link. You might need to refresh your page, but I added a link to Robert's Patreon page. Yes, please support his work. He has a big site. He has a lot of people working for him and so on. So if you can sign up to support him on Patreon, please do that. Link is in the description box. And in theory, are we gonna have This Week in Jihad tomorrow?
Absolutely, yeah. As far as I'm concerned, if you're free.
All right. So we will be on Robert's channel tomorrow night, 8:00 p.m. for This Week in Jihad. And I suspect there has been some jihad.
Unfortunately, yes.
Catch y'all then.